ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio, and we have jihad that is raging across the Middle East. Druze are getting slaughtered. Israel was set on fire, and it seems like nobody gives a crap that an entire freaking genocide is taking place over inside of Syria. And I kind of wonder why. Like, why is this not making the media? It would seem like the forces that Joe Biden said were going to be, for the better. Well, Joe Biden didn't say it, but they trusted Giuliani. They ended up removing a $10 million bounty on his head, and I want to know why. And I'm telling you right now, I am going to be pissed off if there is not an entire movement by the Palestinian crew that's been screaming genocide that actually comes out and loses their dang mind over this. I mean, for the love of God, it is pretty damn sad that Israelis are standing up for these people, and I haven't heard a frickin' peep out of those frickin' Palestinian nut jobs over what the hell is going on over there. Now, as everybody sits here and rolls in this morning, I think I know why that America doesn't give a crap, because we're busy focused on things like this.
Oh my God. I'm happy.
I can't for the life of me understand why the hell Americans can look like that and do things of that nature, but quite literally it just doesn't even freaking register. Like, it doesn't matter. Hey, you guys remember how I talked to you the other day about angry cops and everything that was going on in the Buffalo public schools? Made a video about it, put it out. Sorry, audio was a little bit off on that video, but hey, we're getting better on it, right? But hey, check this out. How many sexual assaults, like calls for service for sexual assaults, do you think that the Buffalo public schools ended up getting for children?
Two on Your Side is digging into questions that followed this podcast, where bombshell allegations were made by a Buffalo police detective about the Buffalo Public School District. One question in particular: how often are Buffalo police being called to city schools, and why? Well, Channel 2's Nate Benson is here with me off the top tonight with some new information that he's discovered just within the past couple of hours, right? So, Nate, what have you learned?
Yeah, that's right, Mary Alice. After these allegations were made public, I submitted a series of Freedom of Information requests with the Buffalo Police Department to try and get a better understanding about what is being reported. And officials I spoke to tonight say the data is shocking and alarming. Since September 2021, the Buffalo Police have responded to calls at 56 Buffalo schools, more than 17,000.
Buffalo Public Schools, police were called over 17,000 times, almost 18,000 times in the last 4 years. Wrap your mind around that one. Fox McCloud, how do you sneak a camera into my living room? I hope you're not referencing the video of all those fat Americans I just showed.
700 times. That's more than 14 times per school day, according to our analysis. It's important to note that the following information is some of the dispatch codes used by police when they are called to the school. Ambulances have been called to the school 880 times. Police responded to more than 600 verbal threats. There's been 357 calls for assaults or fights, and police also responded to calls of sexual offense or rape a combined 126 times in that.
I'm sorry, 126 times police got called to Buffalo Public Schools. 126 times. 126 times police got called to Buffalo Public Schools for sexual assaults. Holy flipping cow. And this dude has been trying to get this problem solved. This detective has been trying to get this problem solved over there for that flipping long. Like, that is an absurd flipping number. Absolute absurd number. It's freaking disgusting. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that tonight. I have a lot more information that I ended up digging on that case, and I'm going to put it out there for you guys, particularly into why they're slandering him, and what all of the slander is about. I may or may not have done a very deep dive into the cases and into the judge from the arrest video of when Detective High ended up getting slammed for misconduct. So we're going to take a look at those allegations of misconduct and those cases of misconduct, and we're going to see exactly what they determined them to be, and we're going to see why the media is giving him such a hard time. Because I'm going to be honest with you, in my opinion, it all goes back to Attorney General Letitia James and her bullshit freaking letter on this guy. It almost seems like the timeline's kind of aligned to when this judge is going through his judicial review process for being a piece of shit and trying to fight the cops. That at the same time, guess who's getting looked into? Guess who's getting looked into? And guess who is on the letter of referral to Letitia James? So we're going to go over all that tonight. Yeah, who are these kids' parents? No, that's the problem, Theodore. That's the problem. That those sexual assaults that they're alleging, some of them were by other children, some of them probably by adults, but the Buffalo Public Schools was covering it all up. And now they're going after the detective that came out and said the Buffalo Public Schools isn't cooperating with the investigations on these, and he's basically sick and tired of watching kids get freaking assaulted. So that's the video that I'm gonna have coming out for you guys today. We're gonna dig into exactly why they went off on him. Now, over inside of Ukraine, in case you all missed it yesterday, the mineral deal ended up
last night. We saw yet again why President Trump is our deal maker in chief.
Now I'm not gonna. I'm getting a little bit sick of the White House and the way they're putting these things out. I'm going to show you because, you want to talk about there is an entire propaganda channel now for the White House. I'm going to show you guys in just a sec.
He secured a historic agreement to establish the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. This is a first of its kind economic partnership for the reconstruction and long-term economic success of Ukraine that the United States will greatly benefit from. This partnership represents the United States taking an economic stake in securing a free, peaceful, and sovereign future for Ukraine. This partnership establishes a fund that will receive 50% of royalties, license fees, and other similar payments from natural resource projects in Ukraine. President Trump has been clear from the beginning. He wants the killing in this brutal war to end. This agreement shows how invested the president is in securing a truly lasting peace.
Now, that's freaking amazing that deal ended up getting struck. And I talked about this on last night's podcast. And I know not everybody was able to tune into last night's podcast. So let me get this out there. Because at the same time that we had the words of Zelensky come out yesterday stating that they're willing to go over and they're willing to attack basically, what the hell is that thing called? The Victory Day Parade over inside Russia, right? They're talking about being willing to go over and attack the Victory Day Parade in Russia. Well, the same time that they ended up doing that and announcing that, Sekdef ended up coming out last night, and he actually ended up threatening Iran. Let me grab this for you guys and get that up on the screen real quick, because that statement within itself is pretty freaking insane. Let me grab the entire freaking statement that he ended up putting out. Here we go. Let's get that up on the screen, because some of you guys might have missed this. Sekdef came out last night, and he just literally put this out on Twitter right before my freaking live session. He just goes and he puts this out on Twitter. And it says, we see, message to Iran, we see your lethal support to the Houthis. We know exactly what you are doing. You know very well what the U.S. military is capable of, and you were warned. You will pay the consequence at the time and place of our choosing. And then he referenced back to a tweet that Donald Trump had put out months ago, talking about every time the Houthis end up shooting at U.S. warships, we're going to treat it as an act of aggression coming from Iran. So looks like Iran is about to get the shit blasted out of it. And everybody that's been sitting around to Israel right now, waiting, when is the United States going to come in? When is the United States going to attack? There's your answer, whenever we feel like it. And I've been telling you guys for a while that this Russia-Iranian deal is all intertwined. And so at the same time, Zelensky's talking about attacking the Victory Day Parade, which would be May 9th. He's also, now we have the Sekdef coming out just a week before that, roughly, saying that we're going to attack Iran when the hell we feel like it. And I got a feeling that those days are going to be right next to each other. They're probably going to be touching, just the tips for when all of that goes down, because they're all connected. They're going to go off on it. I told you guys, look, the White House, in my opinion, has done something, you could call it good, you could call it transparency, I call it a propaganda channel, but they put out whitehouse.gov/wire. President Trump establishes rare earth mineral deal with Ukraine, and this is like their new website for all the great things that the White House is doing. It's a straight propaganda channel, in my opinion. I went over and I took a look at it for just a little bit, and I was like, man, I can't even, like, I like a lot of his like overseas policies, but I can't even look at some of that bullshit that's going on there right now. Okay, over in the effects that we're having, I think, are pretty good over inside of Ukraine with all the equipment and everything else that's been like, this should be pouring in there sometime in the near future. But the sanctions, along with the effects over in the Red Sea, the drop in the oil prices and everything else, is going to put a really tight squeeze on Russia. Today, Preston Stewart dropped this video, and this is Russian troops that are moving towards the front line. I want you to take a look. I'm going to go ahead and mute it. I want you to take a look at some of the transportation vehicles that they have that are moving out there. Look at this first one. That was actually moving, ladies and gentlemen. These are Russian troops heading towards the front line. That sucker appears to be moving, which would mean there's Russians in the back of that heading towards the front. Okay, cool. ATVs. Here's where it starts to get interesting. Dogpiled into the back of a jerry-rigged Haji like van type thing that they're moving on. This is their troop transport that they have going over there to the front. Bunch of motorcycles, ATVs, cool. Good on them. Great, good. To me, the profounding like part of all of this is that they're basically running out of shit and that they're chopping up freaking tiny little vehicles to get them up over there to the front. Brandon Crook says, do you think Ukraine will use America help to go after the Russian parade now that the deal is done? Yes, I do. I don't think that the U.S. is going to come out and openly admit it, though. I think if we actually do end up going over after that parade, I think, or if Ukraine ends up going after that Victory Day parade, obviously aerial defense systems and things like that have been moved into the area over the last 24 hours ever since that statement ended up getting made, or at least that's what I'm being told. So if those aerial defense systems are being moved over into Moscow to help protect the parade, that means Putin plans on holding it. We were thinking, well, maybe they'll just cancel the whole thing. But if Putin cancels the parade because he thinks Ukraine's going to strike it, then Russia's going to look weak, right? It's kind of all about like optics and everything else. So, with that being said, it's probably going to go on. They're probably going to have a buttload of precautions that they're going to end up taking place over there. And those precautions, I don't know if they're going to be enough to stop everything. I really don't. I think that the United States might use some of its little electronic warfare freaking power behind the scenes in order to kind of jam some of those defenses in order to get that through, and might even provide a little bit of intelligence on it. Fox McCloud says, not gonna, that video got me looking at my Honda Civic with lustful eyes. Dude, Honda Civics are actually good cars. So are Honda Accords. Those dang things go forever. Now, we talked about this like propaganda video that got put out. Oh, dude, it's my favorite. If you guys didn't see yesterday morning's live session at all, if you didn't see yesterday morning's live session, I ended up putting out a video that went over. I put out a video that ended up going over this freaking propaganda video that Russia ended up putting out. This one right here. And it's hilarious to me because they're just here. Screw it. I'm going to say it. Notice how well-groomed the grass is, and then notice how all the rubble is sitting like on top of that well-groomed grass. Just going to throw that out there. Maybe they set the scene to make it look like it's something more than it's not. Yeah, you guys remember this garbage, right? Like that video that they ended up putting out. Well, wouldn't you know it, South Korea released an intelligence assessment on how many North Korean troops have actually been killed over there. They're saying that North Korea has suffered 4,700 casualties, including 600 deaths. They go over the amount of troops that were deployed, totaling 15,000 troops that ended up getting sent to Russia. So out of those 15,000 troops, about 1/3 of them have been killed or wounded trying to defend Kursk. Contemplate that for a sec. Russia puts out a propaganda video yesterday showing this great freaking, this great cooperation in between those two, between the freaking North Koreans and the Russians. And then we also end up having this freaking release that ends up going over all of these dang North Koreans that end up getting killed. And that's what South Korean intelligence ends up putting out yesterday. I think that's pretty freaking wild. Or maybe it's just good timing in my part. Now we're enough for Ukraine. We'll touch on Ukraine in a little bit. Why is his mouth open? Dude, I don't know why that video exists in the first place, if you want my honest to God opinion. Like, who the hell produces a video of that quality and it's openly freaking fake? openly fake. Like it is like they didn't even try to add like gunshots in the background. They didn't even try to add anything that would actually make it appear as if they're actually doing their job. Now, yesterday, I told you guys that Netanyahu ended up doing a warning strike to the Druze. And I find this extremely freaking non-coincidental. Like, this is one of those situations where I have to say correlation definitely equals causation over inside of the Middle East. Because yesterday, Jolani's forces, along with ISIS, reportedly, lots of ISIS ended up mobilizing and pushing down to go start assaulting and freaking attacking the Druze. There was a mayor of some of the Druze yesterday, and you're going to see it here in a little bit, that stood up and said, no. Jolani's forces, this, which occurred like day before yesterday, stood up and said, no. They're the good people. They're here to help us, in words to that effect. And now they're getting freaking slaughtered. They actually took the mayor and his son and executed them. And then the 500 people in the village out to a field and slaughtered all of them as well. 500 Druze in this one village ended up getting freaking slaughtered, allegedly. John Wilson, coming in gifting out 10, says, dude in that video got his mouth open preparing to gargle on the Ukraine balls he's about to get teabagged by. There wasn't even Ukrainians there. They had left. John, did you not see that whole video? They weren't even there. It's a fake freaking video. There was no Ukrainians there for them to get their balls gargled on by. They probably will now, but back then they didn't. So Israel ended up setting in an airstrike. Israel ends up sending in an airstrike in order to help protect the freaking Druze against Druze. Correct. D-R-U-Z-E. Druze, not the Jews. But what about the Who's? Dude, I see you down there, man. Yeah, so the fires that were raging over across Israel yesterday. I don't think that these were coincidental for the timing of all of Jolani's forces going down and riding on the Druze, because Israel has been trying to defend them for the longest time. They went over and set up a buffer zone to try to make sure that this shit doesn't happen. If you want to know who the Druze are, they are like a very, very, very traditional, like Muslim freaking religion group, Shia based, if you will, but the Muslim community in a whole doesn't accept them. And when you start talking about radical Islamists, they don't even think that people who claim to be Muslims or call themselves Muslims, people that call themselves Muslims, as long as they don't follow their like radical ideological belief system, then they're not true believers, and therefore they're up to be getting their butts killed as well. These arsonists actually ended up getting caught on camera as well. Here's one of them going out and starting a fire. I put out a video yesterday over on X that was a little bit premature. I thought it was them starting the fires, but it wasn't. That was an older video. So I ended up taking it down, issuing a retraction over on X. This, however, is a freaking video of it happening. And Israel has actually rounded up a bunch of these dudes that were out there starting these fires. Incog Faraday coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate you, brother. So here you go on video, setting damn fires. Going out there and doing it. These weren't wildfires. These weren't freaking electrical fires. They ended up passing it around Telegram and telling everybody to go out and start doing this crap. And it was really obvious, extremely obvious, extremely obvious that they ended up doing this. And it was on Israel's Independence Day. Look at them going around doing the little jihad thing. So on Israel's Independence Day, they go over and do that. Beaverton, Oregon, checking in. What's up, bud? I grew up in freaking Banks, believe it or not, Mr. Beaverton. And for those of you that don't know where Banks is at, it's right outside of freaking Beaverton over towards the coast. You start taking Highway 26 and 6 split. And then you've got Banks that goes right in the middle out by Forest Grove. I actually didn't even grow up in Banks itself. I went to school out in Banks, but yeah, anyways. So here now we have what is reported to be a bunch of ISIS. So they set that fire. Now at the same time that was happening, the Druze were getting slaughtered. So massive fires rage across Israel so that they can't do anything. Their country is completely engulfed in flames. I want you to picture this as all of this shit's going on. This would be extreme coordination because Netanyahu ended up directing airstrikes to go over there and start helping them out. Now you got members of the Israeli government calling on Netanyahu and the IDF to be able to go in there and back the Druze and to get this freaking slaughter to stop because they're quite literally being genocided. That's near my house, the fire in the video. Holy cow. I'm so sorry. I did hear that ended up, well, what got reported in Navaz Zimmerman. If you don't mind commenting this, I did read in the news today that, comment back, Navaz. I read in the news today that not a single house actually ended up getting hit. Is that true? That not a single house around Jerusalem ended up getting burnt down? Is that true? That's what I ended up hearing. That's what I read, that not one house ended up getting burnt down yesterday, Nava. Is that valid? Outside of Jerusalem? That's what they put out. I could be wrong. I mean, those fires were freaking huge. But let me know down in the comments whether or not that's true. Because, yeah, they all have blue roofs. No, I freaking doubt it. It's the Jews. The Jews freaking set the fire, so the Jews protected their house, and the Jews directed the winds to go over and start burning down freaking. Dude, it's so ridiculous what people are claiming right now. It's almost like when the rains came in yesterday. Like, if you guys don't know, everything has been like kind of under control. Rain came in and actually helped out extinguish the fires, which is really huge. And then a sandstorm came and freaking blew across Gaza. So imagine that. You've got rain putting out the fires over outside of Jerusalem and several other places, and then you end up having freaking rain come in, act of God. Rain comes in to go put the fires out, and then massive freaking sandstorm blows across Gaza, starts going after it. So the point I'm trying to make is that Israel was a little bit busy. Israel was a little bit busy yesterday. And while Israel was busy, ISIS and HTS, Jelani's men, were busy mounting up to go south and go slaughter the Druze. These are reported to be ISIS terrorists that are on their way to go down. And I looked, and it almost looks like this guy's got an ISIS patch on his arm. A little hard to tell. I know you guys can't hear a word he's saying, but you know he's speaking squiggly, and it doesn't really matter what he's saying. But what he is essentially saying is that they're going down there to round up and start killing those guys. That's what he's saying. That they want to go down and they want to start freaking slaughtering Druze. And they're mounted up inside their vehicles. And look at all this hardware they're taking to go commit their freaking genocide against the Druze. And the Druze are not taking this shit lying down. As a matter of fact, a video emerged yesterday of the Druze that were busting out of the freaking Golan Heights. Hold on, let me find that sucker for you. Ooh, no, you know what? Before I even show that one, let's show another one, because everybody's like, oh, just one video, that's not enough. This one came out at April 28th. Again, you don't really need to speak squiggly to understand what these men are saying. You guys get the point? You get the point? They are literally riding up to go over and start slaughtering these people. That is a Texas toothpick. I have no idea. Honestly, the effed up part about this video is, like, you can tell, like, you know what? Thanks for pointing that out. Here's the effed up part about this video. Is he's waving this giant knife, or this giant sword that he has. And you bet your butt that thing was like hand forged by one of their little frickin' Islamic terrorists. And do you know what they more than likely end up using that for? Cutting people's flipping heads off. John Wilson says, hey, Matt, so last night I got a call from a friend of mine who's a veteran. I myself have never seen the things he has, but he is calling me saying he wanted to end his life. Thankfully talked him down, and I'm flying him down to have a boys' weekend away from everything he's going through. Dang, brother. Yeah, that's, you know what? To be honest with you, like, I'll just pause the video right there. I just had a phone call, like, midstream of a buddy of mine that was checking in on me, because yesterday I was actually having a pretty rough time. And I ended up getting to the point where I ended up calling a friend. Yeah, no, I'm perfectly fine, you guys. I'm perfectly okay. Obviously, I'm not, like, doing anything, but it's just, I don't think that gets talked about enough. And so I'm just going to pause talking about the Islamic extremists murdering people and recognize the fact that John Wilson just threw down $200 to bring up what's going on inside veterans' minds. You know, we were dealing with this shit over here in the United States for like 20 years, and we're still dealing with it to this day. And I sit here and I look at these things every single day. I go through these videos every single day. I see all of this crap every single day. the amount of crap that I end up seeing online, the amount of things that like you're exposed to when you're doing research on stuff like this it's insane. Not to mention the types of videos and other things that end up getting sent to you, the shit that the Islamic extremists, if you guys don't think that guys like this send me freaking messages of them doing gnarly things to people, you're dead ass wrong, right? And when you go through this stuff for so long, and when you have your friends get lost over the years, and then you see the Middle East falling back to shit, it really makes you question your freaking sanity. You know what I mean? It really does. And so, John, I want to say, like, personally, I appreciate you. My buddy that ended up calling me just a little bit ago, you know who you are. I'm going to call you back right after this stream. I told him I was streaming, so maybe he's watching this. But that stuff all plays a much larger role in your life than you realize. And things that shouldn't be a big deal in your life can turn into big deals. Things that should be like, it sucks. It's just compounding effects, and the effects it has on your brain are freaking untold. And so just to say, like, if you're a vet, thanks for your service. If you're watching this, you know him. We hate it when you say that. I don't like it when people say it to me, and yet I end up saying it. But all I'm saying is it's okay to call friends. Basically, the reason I just went on that rant about myself was to let you know that even my butt needs help sometimes. And I have friends that I call who pick up the phone. So if you're in that spot, call buddies like John, call buddies like my buddy that picked up the phone. If you're one of my friends, freaking call me so that we can bro it out for a little bit and then check up on each other to make sure everything's going okay. It is like a super important thing that we often, like, you know, I used to talk about it a little bit more, but I stopped. Not Magnus coming in, gifting out 10 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you, brother. All right. I'm going to get back to reporting on these radical Islamic extremists and their freaking overgrown knife. The sad part about this is he's waving this dang thing around, and you know for a fact, well, it has a compound. Okay, I see somebody saying it doesn't make the easy things hard. You're right. Or don't make the easy things hard. Sometimes it can make the hardest things in the world seem like nothing. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, like, just straight man talk. Sometimes it will make what some people would picture as the biggest deals in your life seem like nothing, seem like water under the bridge, and you can move on. Nobody gives a shit. And then at other times, it could be the littlest thing that ends up setting you off. It's all back and forth, man. Look, either way, regardless, if you're having a freaking hard day or if you're having a hard time, reach out. For the love of God, just reach out, all right? All right, let's get back. This guy waving his freaking massive freaking blade, dude, they're getting ready to go ride on the Druze. That's what they're doing. ISIS terrorists, HTS, all of them going down to go freaking slaughter the Druze. That's what they're doing. They put out multiple videos yesterday as coordinated fires were raging across Israel, and they started going down and conducting their freaking slaughter on the Druze. Tristan Allen says, my gaming clan just had a Marine take his life Saturday. It's a very hard cause. Because getting to know someone over Discord and gaming is still hard. Yeah, dude, it's freaking bad, man. Like, I've lost more friends to freaking suicide than it's about equal to those that I've lost in combat for me. Now that I think about it, but the amount of people that I've served with that I've known that have taken their own life, not friends, just people that I've served with, people that I know, far surpasses those that ended up getting killed in combat. And it slowly disappeared. It slowly made its way out of the news. Like, it's slowly not getting talked about. And I don't know why. It's just kind of disappearing, if you will. D-Rack coming in, gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. Appreciate you, bro. All right, so the Druze got pissed off. They ended up breaking out of Golan Heights. This is the Druze breaking through the fence at the Golan Heights because they're freaking over it. They're going into Syria. They're going over to go help their freaking neighbors out because they're tired of watching these people get slaughtered. So now the Druze are going out from the Golan Heights to bust out to go help out with the fight over inside of Syria. Now, Israel did establish that buffer zone not that long ago, telling them to keep the hell back, but it didn't do any good. They're still going after him. They're still mounting up. They ended up conducting that airstrike. Here's a video of them raiding one such village, going in and capturing some of these people. Evil Rick says, never been in the military, but I've had friends who I've talked to who have experienced stuff, and they go to a dark place. Never been afraid to talk. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the ones that aren't afraid to talk are still alive.
أكبر هذول أسراء الخنازير الدروز الله أكبر العزة لله الله أكبر هذا هو الخنزير تبعهم الكبير صفوه
Jonathan Knock, in all seriousness, why do you care what they do to each other anymore? Thousands of years of doing the same crap. Y'all never should have been put there. Here's why. This is why I care. Because they're people. John, do you know, out of all my years in the Middle East, my proudest moment of being there, my proudest moment in war, the thing that I am the most proud of, I'm telling you as a man that's fought in Iraq, I'm telling you as a man that's fought multiple times in Afghanistan, that's been across East and Central Africa and Ukraine, my proudest moment in all of that war was reopening an all-girls school inside of Afghanistan. After we liberated that area, now I've liberated ISIS villages, I've liberated entire freaking valleys. My ODA was responsible for dropping 90% of the ordnance inside of Afghanistan in 2017 in a 3-month period. I want you to wrap your head around that one. In a 3-month period, my ODA was responsible for dropping 90% of the ordnance inside of Afghanistan in 2017. For the entire year, we were responsible for in just 3 months, 90% of the ordnance that got dropped in Afghanistan the entire year. Believe me, my friend, I have done my fair share of fighting. And so when I tell you my proudest moment was reopening an all-girls school over in Paktika province in Afghanistan, I'm telling you that for a reason. You can sit back and you can say that we weren't over there for the right reasons. You can sit back and you can say that we should have never been sent there in the first place. You can say whatever you want. But when you ask, why do I care? It's because I have quite literally lived with the people. I had a Kurd in Iraq, a Kurdish man. He was white. He had a red beard. Never going to forget this man's face. That walked up to me with tears in his eyes. Tears. Kissed me on the cheek, holds my hand, and just starts thanking me. Still not my proudest moment. That entire village, bro, that entire village over in Paktika that I told you about, they ended up having everything removed from them by these Islamic extremists. Both the Haqqani network and the Taliban were like really rampant down there. Killed a lot of both of them. And after we liberated that area, they wanted to celebrate. And so we ended up for their celebration, because the Taliban, just like ISIS, they don't allow music and they don't allow dancing and they don't allow all of that crap. Well, part of the Afghani culture over there has to do with like music and dancing. And we called it like the head whip dance. And we ended up flying in from Ghazni a bunch of musical instruments. It wasn't even musical instruments. It was like drums. Dude, it wasn't even that much crap. But we ended up flying all of that out there after the all-girls school got reopened, after those girls are able to go back to school, after kicking the Haqqanis and the Taliban out of the area and kicking their teeth in. And you know what these folks wanted to do? They wanted music and they wanted to dance. That's what they wanted. And so when you ask me, why do I care? It's because of shit like this. That there is a good chunk of this freaking world that wants to live in peace and deserves to live in peace. And they should live in peace. But instead, what ends up happening is this. Did you hear what he said he's going after? I don't have to speak squiggly. You can hear it. This is them capturing Druze inside of Syria to murder them. Why? Because they don't believe in the same form of Islam. Now, you can walk down the street and you can see a woman getting raped on the side of the street. And most of you, as long as you're good men, you would stop and you would do something about it. Why? Because you have the ability. You should. You should do something. You walk down the street, you see a woman getting the frick of her teeth kicked in. You should probably, by a freaking grown man, you should probably go over there and kick his teeth in, right? Get it to stop. Yet on a world stage, we're all people, man. I get that we're countries and we have borders and we have our own laws and we have all of that stuff. But at some point in time, that stuff needs to come to an end where we sit back and we go, nope, not my problem. Last time I checked, World War II was going on. The U.S. sat back and we said, not my problem. Didn't it turn into the U.S.'s problem? Last time I checked, these Islamic extremists were running rampant through the Middle East. And for the longest time, we sat back and we said, not my problem. 9/11 happens. Following that, we go over and we launch this massive global war on terror to great success. Not a single freaking massive terror attack took place in the United States. There was a couple lone wolf attacks and things like that, but nothing like what we saw in 9/11. And you think they weren't trying? No, they were. 100% they were. When I was down in Paktika province, and for those of you that think that, like, again, we should have never been there. You want to bring up the Saudi bullshit and everything else, fine. I was clearing out a frickin' ville over in eastern Afghanistan, down in Paktika, same area, actually about 30 clicks south of where we had reopened that all-girls school, where the Haqqanis were at, and they were making their frickin' bombs and everything else, and cleared out a particular portion of it. Yes, people died that day. Not us. And we get into this little compound, and we start clearing through it. And it was clearly like a halfway house, but also a place where they were making IEDs. And the creepiest damn room that I will never forget, that was also rigged to blow, by the way, because they had to rig it before they left. And you get inside, and I saw more 9/11 shit plastered on the wall inside of this house than I've ever seen. The only time in Afghanistan that I ever seen it, there was freaking like Twin Tower stuff. There was freaking like, dude, like dead American shit. There was things falling from the wall. There was propaganda, like all of that shit. It was one of the creepiest damn things that I've ever seen. And so you can say that we didn't belong there all you want. But I'll tell you, I went willfully and happily to go kill these people to make sure that the United States was safe and that the rest of the world wouldn't have to deal with Islamic terror, number one. And number two, regardless, because I knew the politicians would screw it up at the end of the day, that it's a fact. I knew the politicians would screw it up at the end of the day, but I still did it anyways. You know why? Because of those people in those villages. Because of the man that walks up crying, kissing my hands in northern Iraq. Because of the freaking families that got to celebrate over in Paktika province. Because when I liberated all of these ISIS villages and heard the horror stories of what ISIS was doing to these people. Dude, they were literally taking the village elders and wrapping debt cord around their freaking head and popping their heads off. They were impregnating women. They were sending dudes to the front, like rape, dude, on massive scales. And you don't think that as a military, we have the ability to stop that we shouldn't do that? Because it's just going to spread. Oh, by the way, do you know how many voices? Hear me out on this. No, you're going to hear me out now. Obviously, we have the ability to like listen to their radios. We'll kill them, we'll take their radios, but electronic warfare is also a thing. I don't think I'm giving away any secrets here. And so we could listen in on everything that they were saying, right? Over there in that area, by the way, also found American license plates from California. Americans were going over the front line to fight there, so that's good. Heard them over the radio. There was also at least 4 different languages that were being spoken. This shit has people flocking from all over the world, and it's a much greater problem than I think most people realize. And if it's not stopped, it's going to spread. And that is why back in December, right here on this channel, I said, this is bullshit. Jelani and Baghdadi were freaking buddies. And that he's going to continue to commit a genocide. And that's exactly why I'm talking about this today, because it's the same mentality. You don't do that crap for 10 years. This man fought for 10 years under the freaking banner of overthrowing the Assad regime and establishing a Sunni Islamic Caliphate. And when I say that, nobody hears me. When I tell you the shit that they did and what they're trying to do, you don't care. Nobody does. And yet, over here, genocide happening in front of your freaking very eyes. Holy freaking cow, man. Let me go take a look at some of these comments. I know I've seen these things dropping in here since I gave that freaking rant. So, Jonathan Knock, that's why. To answer your question, John, that's why. That's why I care. And in my opinion, yeah, I should have been there. I should have been there to stop that bullshit from happening. I should have been there. I wish I could have killed more of those assholes. I couldn't kill them fast enough. Because they're murderers, they're rapists, and they want to come here, and whether or not you realize it, they want to kill you, murder your family, take your wife as a freaking war bride, impregnate her, take your children, indoctrinate them in jihad, give them freaking weapons, and have them go out and conduct more attacks. That's why. So whether or not you agree with it, I do. That's why I care about this. I've seen that shit firsthand. I've seen what they do. It's not okay. And it's not okay as a world for us to sit back and to pretend like it's not happening. It's not okay as a world for us to allow idiot freaking comedians and random freaking podcast hosts that have no idea what the hell they're talking about and who the hell it is they're backing pretend like they give two shits about this and try to speak as if they know what they're doing. They don't. Laura says, wow, powerful. Those who aren't afraid to talk are still alive. So true. Been married to a former combat Marine for 37 years. Yep. David W., total respect for you, Matt, and the channel. Fox McCloud, whom shall I send and whom will go for us? And I said, here I am. Send me. I don't care whether or not you think we should have been there. I don't. Rank Scrub, do you believe that overthrowing of Assad has freed the way for American interests to seize up a new battlefield in colonialism? No, I don't. If you want to know my personal belief on why the Biden administration thought it would be a good idea to kind of give some credibility to Jelani, it's because Jelani's forces and the IRGC don't get along. Jelani's forces were fighting against the Assad regime, and the IRGC was fighting for the Assad regime over inside of Syria. And the IRGC ended up pulling out, and then Jelani ended up taking over. If the IRGC would have been successful and all of these freaking jihadists would have gone away, then Iran would have even more power and influence over the region. And right on the freaking doorstep of Syria. So do you want to deal with jihadists, or do you want to deal with, a radical regime with WMDs that's now buddies with Iran? It would be a massive alliance. And so I think, personally, I don't even agree with this decision. Personally, I think what our government did was gave some credibility to him so that Assad wasn't there anymore, so that Iran could start losing territory. That's what I think happened. But this is the result. If we're going to be perfectly honest, this is the result. Nava says, thanks for being you. Jonathan Knock, what's the status of that school now? We abandoned those people in Afghanistan after almost making a difference to an entire generation. What a shame. Yeah, Jonathan, here's the problem. I appreciate you coming back and bringing that up about what's the status of that school. And what people like you don't understand, Jonathan, who now you're clearly trolling, which is fine. That made a difference in those people's lives. I've been telling people this for the longest time. It is not a battle of physical terrain. It is a battle of human terrain. Human terrain. There's buildings here. Great. You know what else is over here? People. You know who starts and ends wars, Jonathan? People. And I can tell you right now, the effects of that school being reopened is a resistance movement currently over inside of Afghanistan that they're trying to crush. And so there's people over there right now standing up and fighting against them because of the work that we did. Again, I don't give a shit about the politicians. Everybody that, like, dude, since Vietnam, our government, since Vietnam, our government and politicians have been screwing up warfare. I don't fight for politicians. I fight for the Constitution, number one, and to keep your ass safe, number two. In addition to that, those people, that taste of freedom that they got, that's an idea. And you can't kill an idea. You can only kill the people, which is why this is taking place. So again, I go back. This is not, Jonathan, this is not a freaking war for terrain. This is a war for human terrain. It's not physical terrain, it's human terrain. And what we did was we implanted that idea. So Jonathan, I challenge you to prove to me that those effects of what we did aren't still holding true over there to this day to keep more assholes at bay. Those people have likely killed a buttload of these terrorists that might have stifled fire a little bit and kept it from spilling out. Again, what's the status of the school now? You know, Jonathan, I'm sorry, brother. You know, Afghanistan got overran by the Taliban because of a crooked-ass freaking government, because of a crooked-ass administration that quite literally lied to the American public about it. And those people are living shit lives and in a horrible freaking place. It is a damn shame, as you said at the end. What a shame. You are correct, sir. It is a shame. It is a shame that that happened. But it's also a shame that people want to sit back and pretend like this crap isn't taking place and that stuff that we did didn't make a difference. It's pretty freaking sad, to be honest. Are they going to win? Probably not. But do ideas spread? Absolutely. How do you think this jihad that you're seeing on the screen started? It started with one man speaking. All of what you're seeing here started 1,400 years ago when a man named Muhammad was born. Did I get that math right? Yeah. All of this started then. One man running his mouth. One man was running his mouth. That's how it started. That's how this jihad that you're seeing on your screen started, by one man running his mouth. So yeah, I do believe that it's at least worth the shot to stop this crap, to go over there and protect people, to open schools, to liberate villages, to kill these types of people, and to get rid of them. Why? Because all it took was one man opening his mouth, and it changed the course of history. Same thing with Adolf Hitler. Hate the guy, opened his mouth, started talking, all of a sudden millions of people are dead. It's human terrain. That's why I still talk on the podcast. That's why I would go over there and fight. That's why I continue to do what I do. One man, quite literally, can make the difference. Or woman, to be honest. Words, Jonathan, change the world. Words. Laura, speaking the truth, Matt, preach, brother. JR, drives me nuts. I'm not getting notifications when you go live. Well, I know it pushed out a notification today. Make sure that if you guys want to, be here when I go live, that you guys are queuing up. If you at least see a notification, even if you don't watch, click on it. If YouTube sends you a notification, click on it, let it run for a minute or two, and then freaking close the thing out. At least click on the notifications and open it up. YouTube started a new algorithm type deal where if you're not clicking on it, it automatically just stops sending certain people notifications, and it started back in March. Some people, I'm just really curious if anybody got freaking notifications, but yeah. but make sure that when it happens that you end up getting on there, all right? If you get push notification, make sure you're clicking on it. Here's another group of Druze that ended up getting rounded up.
وتم القاء القبض عليهم فسبحان الله هذا كفر بالله عز وجل قول مع يولك
مع
ها
يا ابن الحلال معقول رب العالمين
قول مع قول معي تكفر بالله عز وجل ها من أعطاك نعمة البصر
الحمد لله رب العالمين
من أعطاك نعمة البصر
رب العالمين
من أعطاك نعمة المشي
رب العالمين
ها
رب العالمين
والله العظيم لو بدنا نعاملكم بالمثل كنا عاملناكم
فيكم البركة يا ابو
أحلى معاملة قول معي من قلب قول معي من قلب
شو الحلال معك
لا تعرفت معي مع كمان جابت حالك عم تحلف معي
Big tough guy with a gun. He is going to be fertilizing the earth very, very soon. Here's another video of more Druze getting rounded up. They're taking them out and they're slaughtering them. They're shooting them in fields. Thomas, was I in Kunar in 2017? No, I was in Jalalabad. I was in Nangarhar. And where else did I go? Trying to think of where else I was over there in 2017. I forget. No. Yep. So more of them are getting rounded up. This is probably one of the more annoying videos that I've seen. I'm just going to go ahead and mute it and let you know what they're doing. They're lining all of these people up for execution. And before they do so, these are Druze, by the way, over in Syria. They're lining them all up. They don't know they're about to get freaking schwacked. And they're drawing mustaches on all of their faces. Why? I wish I could tell you. They're quite literally using a Sharpie and putting mustaches on their faces, lining them all up. Check out that headband. And then they're taking them, they're lining them up, and they're shooting them in the back of the head. They don't know what's about to go down. It's like the Jews during the Holocaust walking in to take their showers. Had no idea what was going down, what was about to take place. They had no idea that their hands, after they had those mustaches drawn on their face, would get tied behind their backs and that they'd get executed. This is going on in Syria right now. As we speak, this is what's going on. A Druze commander, Issam Zaridian, in the village of Sura al-Kabira, was killed in a fight against ISIS in 2017. Fighting against ISIS in 2017, he gets killed. They built a memorial for him. Guess what ISIS did? They took it and they set it on fire.
Allahu Akbar! نصرة لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. عصام زهر الدين خنزير من مقام زهر الدين. الله أكبر ولله الحمد. نصرة لرسول الله. خادمون يا خنازير يا علوج. الله أكبر! نصرة لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
I'm pretty sure that's his memorial / grave that they're dancing on top of there. Real good people. And if you didn't get a chance to see what ISIS was doing over inside of Iraq, man, you missed it. You really missed it. You really, really missed it. So fires get launched across Israel. And they move in and they just start murdering people. Ladies and gentlemen, this kind of needs to be brought to somebody's attention. This is an actual problem. This is what I was worried about. the Biden administration backing Jelani, or not backing Jelani, but at least meeting up with him and his freaking crew. And they're pretty much ISIS rebranded. That's what they are. And that's why they're friends with ISIS. That's why ISIS is moving in with them, because the leader of HTS, who's now in control of an entire country, which, by the way, there's a movement to make this guy, like, no kidding, on an international stage, like a legitimate leader of this country. Those were all his men out there doing all of those things. And yeah, ISIS is buddies with him because he wants to establish a Sunni Islamic caliphate. It is going to be ISIS 2.0. All of the attacks that ISIS conducted here in the United States, the people that were getting shot and everything else, this is going to be worse, and this needs solved. I hear Sarah Adams when she's talking about Afghanistan and everything else. Also an issue isolated right now. That crap is going to spread like wildfire, just like it did when ISIS first emerged. You're in Banana says, my friends used to be in Uruzgan camp from Holland. Oh, really? Uruzgan. That's interesting. They're coordinating it, guys. They're quite literally coordinating it, and they're doing it in front of your freaking very eyes. And it's going to get worse. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to get worse. I had some other stuff to show you. I really don't even think it's that important to bring up. And I really wish that, I hope that people hear me out. Linda Liu, HTS, and ISIS. Yeah, HTS is the radical Islamic terror organization that the current de facto leader over inside of Syria started. He goes by the name al-Jilani. Jilani started a group called the Al-Nusra Front all the way back, and I want to say it was 2014. He split off from ISIS when ISIS ended up starting. Well, he actually split off from Al-Qaeda in Iraq to go over and recruit for AQI. And then Al-Qaeda in Iraq got disbanded by Osama bin Laden. And so then he started up ANF, or the Al-Nusra Front, recruiting radical Islamic terrorists who also were crossing the border into Iraq, by the way. And their stated goal was to overthrow the Assad regime and start an Islamic Caliphate. It grew in momentum. He ended up recruiting more little jihadi groups across Syria until it eventually evolved into present-day HTS, who then overthrew the Assad regime and is now in control of the country. And the Turks are going in, and Russians are still there, and Americans have pulled out, and everybody's getting slaughtered. Israel ended up going in to, let me get this up. Get us across the world over here. Israel ended up going in. So you have the Golan Heights that's like right up over here. Israel ended up getting this after the war in 67. And Israel went over and they established a buffer zone, which you can now see on Google Maps. Kind of cool. Google Maps ended up putting that buffer zone in. So they have that. The Druze are pretty much Damascus and south, and they're over inside of the Golan Heights, and there's actually some over inside of Israel as well. And all of this shit is all taking place down here south of Damascus, and they're all riding around going over to find them and frickin' kill them. And they're slaughtering them. They're murdering them. This entire country of Syria, technically, as far as what some people, well, there's a lot of people in the international community that want Jilani to be the recognized leader of Syria. And if that happens, they're going to be an officially recognized Sunni Islamic Caliphate. It will happen. The Caliphate is formed, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it happened again. And I'll remind you, all because one man, freaking, 1,400 years ago, opened his mouth and started speaking. So maybe if you open your mouth and start speaking, you'll speak to the right people and say, this is bullshit and it needs to stop and something needs done about it. Yeah, that's called a genocide. Meathead. Yes, this is a genocide. They are systematically eliminating, purposefully targeting and killing everybody that they can get their hands on to get rid of them. That is the genocide. Angela says, Matt, even though there are frustrating people at times, I believe this podcast can serve as a valuable form of therapy for you. It's wonderful that you have someone to confide in. Support is crucial. Totally agree. Totally agree. Texas says, heard he got kicked for saying the crap he said 2 days ago, almost ruining Trump's deal with Ukraine. Yeah, hopefully. All right. I'm going to have that video out for you guys. Like I said, later on today, going over the allegations that got put against Detective Richard High for his patterns of misconduct, because they're going to sit and they're going to completely try to freaking slaughter him. Did a lot of background research on the cases that they were talking about. Took a while. I literally spent an entire day digging through all of that crap. So I want to put that video out later today. The other one that I ended up putting out, even though the audio is trash, I think is up around like 100,000 views or so right now, that ended up going over the mayor and everything else. So I'm going to put out another one in support of that guy today. You guys, I'm going to end up posting it probably around 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So when you guys see it, go in there, watch it, promote the crap out of it. Yeah, I love you guys very much. I do. I appreciate everything you guys do for me. And I'll see you guys here this evening.